"We found her, my lord." Ned rose quickly. "Our men were Lannisters. It was Joyroy." His steward, Van Poel, replied. "She's not been harmed, thank the gods," Ned said. His men had been searching for Arya for 4 days now, but the Queen's men had been out hunting as well. "Where is she? Tell Jaror to bring her here at once." "I'm sorry, my lord," Paul told him. "The guards on the gate were Lannister men, and they informed the Queen when Jaror brought her in. She's been taken directly before the king." "Damn that woman," Ned said, starting at the door. "Find Susanna and bring her to the audience chamber. Her voice may be needed." He descended the tower steps in a red rage. He had led searches himself for the first 3 days, had scarcely slept in an hour since Arya had disappeared. This morning had been so heart-sick and wavery that he could scarcely stand, but now his fury was on him, filling him with strength. Men called out to him as he crossed the castle yard, but Ned ignored them in his haste. He would have run, but he was still the king's hand, and the hand must keep his dignity. He was aware of his eyes that followed him, of the muttered voices wondering what he would do. The castle was the modest, holding a half-day's ride for the Trident, south of the Trident. The royal party had made themselves the uninvited guests of its lords, Sir Ramun Derry, while the hunt for Arya and the butcher's boy was conducted on both sides of the river. They were not welcome visitors. Sir Raymond lived under the king's peace, but his family had fought beneath Ragnarok's dragon banner at the Trident, and his 3 older brothers had died there, a truth neither Robert nor Sir Raymond had forgotten. With king's men, Darien men, Lannister men, and Stark men all crammed into the castle far too small for them, the tensions buried hot and heavy, the king was appropriate Sir Raymond's audience chamber, and that was where Ned found them. The room was crowded when he burst in. Too crowded, he thought. Left alone, he and Robert might have been able to settle the matters amicably. Robert was stumbling in Derry's high seat at the far end of the room, his face closed and sullen. Cersei Lannister and her son stood beside him. The Queen had her on Joffrey's shoulder. Thick silken bandages still covered the boy's arms. Arya stood in the center of the room, but for Jarroy Cassel, every eye upon her. "Arya," Ned called out loudly. He went to her, his boots ringing on the stone floor. When she saw him, she cried out and began to sob. Ned went to one knee and took her around the arms. She was shaking. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry. "I know," he said. She felt so tiny in his arms, but nothing but a scrawny little girl. It was hard to see how she had caused so much trouble. "Are you hurt?" "No." Her face was dirty, and her tears left pink tracks down her cheeks. "Hungry some. I ate some berries, but there was nothing else." "We'll feed you soon enough," Ned promised. He rose to face the king. What is the meaning of this? His eyes swept the room, searching for the friendly face, but on his own men there were few enough. Sir Raymond Derry guarded his look well. Lord Renly wore a half-smile that might mean anything, and Sir Bashanan was grave, and the rest were Lannister men and hostile. Their only good fortune was both Jaime Lannister and Sandor Clegane were missing, leading searches both north of the Trident. "Why was I not told my daughter had been found?" Ned demanded, his voice ringing. "Why was she not brought to me at once?" He spoke to Robert, but it was Cersei Lannister who answered. "How dare you speak to the king in that matter?" The king was stirred. "Quiet, woman," he snapped. He straightened in his seat. "I am sorry, Ned. I never meant to frighten the girl. It seemed best to bring her here and get the business done with quickly." "And what business is that?" Ned put ice on his voice. The Queen stepped forward. "You know full well, Stark, this girl of yours attacked my son. Her and the butcher's boy. That animal of hers tried to tear his arm off." "That's not true," Arya said loudly. "She just bit him a little. He was hurting Micaiah." What's that? "Jeff told us what happened," the queen said. "You and the butcher's boy beat him with clubs while you sent your wolf on him." "That's not how it was," Arya said, close to tears again. Ned put a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, it is," Prince Geoffrey insisted. "They all attacked me. She threw lion's tooths in the river." Ned noticed that he did not so much as glance at Arya as he spoke. "Liar!" Arya yelled. "Shut up!" the prince yelled back. "Enough!" the king roared, raising in his seat. His voice thickened with irritation. Silence fell, and the growled at the girl through his neckbeard. "Now, child, will you tell me what happened? Tell it all, and tell it true." It was a great crime to lie to the king. Then he looked over to his son. "When she was done, you will have your turn. Until then, hold your tongue." As Arya began her story, Ned heard the door open behind him. He glanced back and saw Vern Pole enter with Susanna. They stood quietly at the back of the hall as Arya spoke, and when she got to the part where she threw Jeff's sword in the middle of the trident, Roland Bathenar began to laugh. The king bristled. "Sir Bathenar, escort my brother from the hall before he chokes." Lord Renly stifled with laughter. "My brother is too kind. I can find the door myself." He bowed to Geoffrey. "Perchance later you will tell me how a 9-year-old girl the size of a wet rat managed to disarm you with a broom handle and throw your sword in the river." As the door swung shut behind him, Ned heard him say "lion's tooth" and groveled once more. Prince Geoffrey was pale as he began his very different version of the events. When his son was done talking, the king rose heavily from his seat, looking at the arms, who wanted to be anywhere but here. "What is all in 7 hells am I supposed to make of this? He says one thing, she says another." They were not the only one, peasants," Ned said. "Susanna, come here." Ned heard her version of the story. The night Arya had vanished. He knew the truth. "Tell us what happened." His eldest daughter stepped forward hastily. She was dressed in blue velvets trimmed with white, and the silver chain around her neck. Her thick auburn hair had been brushed until it was shown. She blinked at her sister and then at the young prince. "I don't know," she said tearfully, looking as though she wanted to bolt. "I don't remember. Everything happened so fast. I didn't see." "You rotten—" Arya shrieked. She flew at her sister like an arrow, knocking Susanna down on the ground, pummeling her. "Liar, liar, liar, liar!" "Arya, stop it!" Ned shouted. Dara pulled off her sister, kicking. Susanna was pale and shaking as Ned lifted her back to her feet. "Are you hurt?" he asked, but she was staring at Arya, and she did not seem to hear. "The girl is as wild as the filthy animal of hers," Cersei Lannister said. "Robert, I want her punished." 7 hells, Robert swore. "Cersei, look at her. She's a child. What do you want me to do? Whip her through the streets? Damn it. Children fight. It's over." No lasting harm was done. The queen was furious. "Geoffrey will carry those scars for the rest of his life." Sir Bathenar looked at his eldest son. So he will. Perhaps they will teach him a lesson, Ned. Teach him a lesson. Ned, see that your daughter is disciplined. I will do the same with my son." "Gladly, your grace," Ned said with a vast reveal. Robert started to walk away, but the queen was not done. "And what of the direwolf?" she called after him. "What of the beast that savaged your son?" The king stopped, turned back, frowned. "I'd forgotten about the damn wolf." Ned, kissing Arya tense in the driver's arms, Robert spoke up quickly. "We found no trace of the direwolf, your grace." Robert did not look unhappy. "No? So be it." The queen raised her voice. "100 golden dragons to the man who brings me its skin." a costly pelt, Robert grumbled. I want no part of this, woman. You can damn well buy your furs with Lannister gold. The queen regarded him coldly. I do not think... I had not thought you so niggardly. The king I thought to wed would have laid a wolfskin across my bed before the sun went down. Robert's face darkened with anger. That would be the fine trick without a wolf. We have a wolf, Cersei Lannister said. Her voice was very quiet, but her green eyes shone with a triumph. It took them all the moment to comprehend her words, but when they did, the king struggled irritably. As you will, have Sir Ilyn see to it. Robert, you cannot mean this, Ned protested. The king was in no mood for an argument. Enough, Ned. I will hear no more. A direwolf is a savage beast. Sooner or later, it would have turned on the girl the same way the other did on my son. Get her dog. She'll be happier for it. No, get her a dog. She'll be happy for it. That was when Susanna finally seemed to comprehend. Her eyes were frightened as they went to her father. He doesn't mean lady, does he? She saw the truth in her face. No, she said. No, not lady. Lady did not bite anyone. She's good. Lady wasn't there, Arya shouted angrily. You leave her alone. Stop them, Susanna pleaded. Don't let them do it, please. Please. It wasn't Lady. It was Nymeria. Arya did it. You can't. It was Lady. Don't let them hurt Lady. I'll make her be good. I promise. She started to cry. All Ned could do was take her in the arms and hold her while she wept. She looked across the room at Robert, his old friend closer than any brother. Please, Robert, for the love you bear me, for the love you pour my sister, please. The king looked at them in a long moment and then turned his eyes on his wife. Damn you, Cersei, he said with loathing. Ned stood gently disengaging himself from Susanna's grasp. All the weariness of the past 4 days have returned him. Do it yourself, then, Robert, he said in his voice cold and sharp as steel. At least you'll have the courage to do it yourself. Robert looked at Ned with a flat, dead eyes, and left without a word. His footsteps heavy as lead. Silence filled the halls. Where is the direwolf? Cersei asked when her husband was gone. Beside her, Prince Joffrey was smiling. The beast is chained up outside the gatehouse, your grace. Sir Bartanon answered reluctantly. Send for Ilyn Payne. No, Ned said. Gyro will take the girls back to their rooms and bring me ice. The words tasted bile in his throat, but he forced them out. If it must be done, I will do it. Cersei Lannister regarded him suspiciously. You, Stark? Is this some trick? Why would you want to do such a thing? They were all staring at him, but it was Susanna's look that cut. She is a Lenore's. She deserves better than a butcher. He left the room with his eyes burning and his daughter wailing echoing in his ears, and found the direwolf pup where they chained her. Ned sat beside her for a while. Lady, he said, tasting the name. He had never paid so much attention to the names of the children had picked, but looking at her now, she knew that Susanna had chosen well. She was the smallest of the litter, the prettiest, the most gentle and trusting. She looked at him with her bright golden eyes and ruffled her thick grey fur. Shortly, Joffrey brought him ice. When it was over, he said, chose 4 men to take the body north, bury her at Winterfell. All that way? Joffrey said, astonished. All that way, Ned affirmed. The Lannister woman shall never have these skins. He was walking back to the tower to give himself up to sleep at last when Sandor Clegane and his riders came pounding through the castle gate back from their hunt. There was something slunged over the back of his dysentery. A heavy-shaped rat in bloody coat. No sign of your daughter, Hand. The hound rasped down, but the day was not wholly wasted. We got her little pet. He reached back and shoved the burden off, and it fell with a thump in front of Ned. Bleeding, Ned pulled back the cloak, dreaded the words had found for Arya. But it was not Mary after all. It was the butcher's boy, McKellen, his body covered in dried blood. He had been cut almost in half from shoulder to waist by some trembling blows struck from above. You rode him down, Ned said. The hound's eyes seemed to glitter through the steel of his hideous dog's helm. He ran. He looked at Ned's face and laughed, but not very fast.